Okay, welcome to Prophecy Montana, folks. We have the good Dr. Paul with us this morning. We have Ben Doctor with us, and we have Dallas. Dallas, what's your last name?
Esty.
Esty. Okay, we're learning more and more about you every single day. And listen, we're not going to be reading out the last day events this morning. We're actually going to be talking about some of the current events that are taking place in the world today and how it's impacting prophecy as we know it. Now, I don't know if you guys were familiar with some of the things that have been taking place, like like the flooding. You guys have all seen
Heard of that? Yep, seen a lot of content on that stuff.
Yep. There's Tennessee, North Carolina, and parts of Georgia are suffering from a horrific flood from the rains from the Hurricane Helene, and the effects. Now, do you guys believe that maybe perhaps that was a judgment of God? Do you think maybe this is a wake-up call, or do you think this is just something that maybe the government, some cruel trick that the government has played? I mean, there's a lot of take on these things. We know that from a child, I know that my neighbors used to have a cloud seeder, and they were required every once in a while to light it. It was a big propane tank, and it would send these little sparkly things, look like glitter, up into the air, would seed the clouds. And I know that they used to do it with airplanes. And the idea is, if you guys know anything about cloud seeding, is rain needs a particle to attach the ice crystal to. Pure water does not freeze. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. Pure water can be like minus 100 degrees, and it will not freeze. The minute you add a particle for that ice crystal to begin to form, it'll immediately freeze and attach to it.
So you need some pollution.
You need some pollution. You need some dust in the air. You need something up there for that raindrop or that ice crystal to begin to form, and that's what the theory behind cloud seeding is. It's a very, very firm scientific principle that's been used for years. There's nothing conspiratorial about it. And so if you take a big storm like that that's moving through with lots of water in the clouds and you seed it, you can dump a lot of rain very quickly. There's been some theory about whether or not that's actually happened in those areas, because now a bunch of nefarious things are taking place where the government is actually preventing people from rescue efforts, and they're stopping the volunteers from coming in and helping.
Yeah, people with their own private helicopters trying to rescue
You saw
people.
that.
Yeah.
You saw that, yeah. Out there on which lake was that?
I forgot that.
Can't remember I just watched it last night. So we can talk about that a little bit. We can also talk about the union strike. There was a union strike that took place over in along the East Coast there, that was scheduled to still be taking place, but for some reason they postponed it until after the election, which is very interesting to me.
Political.
Yeah, it was a political maneuver, and this tells me that it's less about actual wages and work environment than probably political and maybe even more in nature, because we know that the devil is working in this world. We know that he has formed alliances with leaders and people on the earth, and he's working intimately to try and bring about his plans of total domination. And one of the things that I see that's taking place is a lot of the small businesses are having to shut their doors because of things like perhaps this strike. I can see a lot of small businesses ending at that point because of the strike.
Oh yeah, definitely, because they don't have the capital to just like sit and not be earning.
They can't weather the storm. Yeah, once the goods, they're waiting. Basically it's hand to mouth in a lot of these little small stores where the goods come in and they sell them right away. And if there's no goods, there's no sales being made, and they got to let their employees go, and then they have to look for something else, a job at Walmart maybe, some of these bigger box stores, bigger corporate entities. And so, it makes good business sense if you're a big corporate entity to flush out the small guy to make more business, to make more money.
Absolutely, yep.
So, but we're told in the spirit of prophecy that and I'll get the exact quote, maybe put it right here, that the last day events will be brought on by the
unions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a lot of people today refute that. And it's interesting, right when that strike took place, there was also 200 missiles launched into Israel.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. It's interesting that all this stuff is happening, because often you'll see, something happens, or a couple things happen, right? And one receives a lot more media coverage than the other. And it's always kind of, like suspicious, like, why is this being covered more than that? Like, because media outlets do pick and choose what they show, and as we know, most media is all controlled by a few very powerful people, who have agendas of their own. So,
Yeah, if you look at the media and their talking points, they're almost, even local media news channels are completely aligned with the agenda, it seems.
Yeah, it's interesting to question who's running the government. And it's interesting that you can answer that thing really quickly. Corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
That's wrong. And where's that going to lead?
Mm-hmm.
It leads to the billionaires controlling our government.
Yeah.
And it's being done.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of those billionaires and stuff are, into the occult and stuff like that too, and have, they have philosophies and beliefs of their own that generally don't line up with the well-being of, everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
That's where taxes goes too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's easy to forget what's the root cause of all this.
Yeah.
Paul told us we don't fight against principalities and powers.
No, we do fight.
Spiritual wickedness in
of
high
this
places.
earth.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't what this stuff
Mm-hmm.
isn't what it's about. This is a controversy between Jesus and Satan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Satan will use anybody who's willing to be used by him. And the book of Job tells us that it wasn't God who sent the tempest or the tornado that dropped the house on Job's children and killed them.
Mm-hmm.
That was Satan that did that. We do have a lot of technology, seeding, clouds, or whatever. It's interesting. The government never uses that to alleviate drought.
Mm.
They only use that to cause problems. And why would they spend all that money and all that effort to seed the clouds when the hurricane is out in the Gulf of Mexico or in the Caribbean
That is a
or
good
flooding
question.
Cuba or the Dominican Republic or any of these other islands?
Yeah, because you could
Why
stop
would
it
they
ahead
do
of
all
time.
that?
You could cause it to dump all that rain before it got.
This is a reminder to us that you cannot do anything to fight the forces of nature. It's going to happen. And if the devil gets those in his hands, and as the Spirit of God is withdrawn from the earth, those things will happen more and more. These places in North Carolina, these places, they call them mountains, but, in these hills, they didn't have flood insurance because it doesn't flood in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Floods in the valleys.
What's interesting along that line, Dallas, is my wife's from Kentucky, and her sisters are living in Tennessee, and they've been watching and experiencing the weather forever, while they were there. And they said they have never seen air mass, a weather system, come up the way it did and turn the wrong way.
Yeah.
And dump all that water. It's
Yeah.
never been seen before.
Yeah. Most of those hurricanes will turn east,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
but this one went straight up.
go ahead,
Say it.
Lisa.
What are you going to say?
I was just looking.
Is your microphone on? Must be.
Yeah. Natural disasters in 2024. Storm Boris sweeps through Central Europe. I don't want to, depress anybody, but the Sahara Desert turns into an ocean from floods. Los Angeles threatened by 3 uncontrollable fires, bad weather and flooding in Chad, Typhoon Yagi wreaks havoc in Asia, flooding in Morocco. Japan fears mega quake, and they had 2 powerful earthquakes. It goes on and on about the fires and the natural disasters and the cost of fixing them, and just all the floods that are around the world right now. They're in Brazil and and law and in Indonesia and Tanzania and China and stuff like that. It's just crazy about all the
Yeah. Satan knows that he has but a short time.
Yeah, and I think it's like, I think he's working with kind of the earth, right? Because like we're told the earth is going to wear out like a rag. We're also told that, you know, the birthing pains, you know, and the way birthing pains work is they, you know, they're like, you know,
You get worse and worse and worse.
they get worse and worse and worse, and then don't they like
They subside.
Dallas
they
knows
subside,
all about that.
and then they get worse and worse and worse, and it's just like
labor pain.
yeah, labor pain, and it's the same thing, and I think we're reaching that point where it's just like we're reaching a high peak.
The frequency and the intensity increase.
Yeah, exactly, and it's getting that way, and even here in Montana, like
Why did
the
they
last,
call it Mother Nature? Jeez.
yeah, I don't know,
It's just an excuse.
but the last couple of summers, in my experience, have been very temperate compared to summers prior. Like it just keeps getting more and more temperate here, which is great for us. But everywhere else, it's just it's bad for everywhere else.
You know, it's funny how you mentioned why couldn't they have seeded those clouds before it struck and took some of the bite out of it. You know, I mean that would have been an easy thing
It
to
could've.
like a preemptive strike against something that could be potentially
Well,
disastrous.
It was raining out there too. Did they cause it to rain out there?
Oh, you mean in the ocean?
Yeah.
Well, they could have seeded it and
They
even
could
caused more
have.
rain.
What's called chemtrails.
Yeah. Well, chemtrails will do
But-
that.
Yeah.
They could have caused the moisture in the air to come down, but why would they have spent all that money to do it out there?
Well,
And
Time.
who put the moisture in the? They didn't put the moisture in the air.
no.
Even if they did
No, it's
make it rain more, but that's all saying that man is in control, and we are not.
Well, I think
We
that
are not.
I think like
The battle is.
I think it's opportunity. I think it's an opportunist move by the
Yeah.
powers to be.
exactly. I mean, because they let stuff happen, like the property values are gonna just drop over there.
Oh, they've
Which
already
mean-
pulled the bulldozers out. There's some talk about maybe some lithium being possibly mined over there.
definitely.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going around on the internet right now. We don't know what's true and what's not. But they literally have not even picked up all the dead bodies, and the bulldozers are ready to start bulldozing these subdivisions.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the property values are gonna drop. Rich people are gonna pick them up and do what they want with them.
I mean, Hawaii was a very strange thing. I mean, I don't know if we're allowed
yeah.
to talk about that here, but I mean, Hawaii. I mean, there was and they were stopping the people from leaving. I watched a video like right off the bat. These people were actually trying to leave the area where it was burning, and the cops turned them around, made them go back. They were almost to the safe zone, and they were blockading the road, and everybody inside the fire zone was being turned around. And they actually had to turn around, drive back into the fire, and then the fire pushed them out of the car, and then they jumped in the water where they almost suffocated. And so we're seeing this over and over again. Now, I'm not going to blame everything on the police because there's not like there's no possible way everybody could be bad, right?
No.
And in on this little conspiracy. There's no possible way. But there is a spirit
Oh, yeah.
overtaking things.
Oh, definitely.
And
Satan definitely uses people as well.
yes,
Yeah.
people are caught up in this spirit, and they do things and make bad decisions because they're being influenced by a greater power. I do believe that. Maybe they're good at heart. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that these people are like, intentionally doing these things, but
Yeah.
yeah, if you're disconnected from God, then by default, you become a loudspeaker for the devil,
Yeah, for sure.
you know.
You know, we always get excited around election time, especially if it's a presidential election. And it seems like over the last 8-12 years, maybe, we have developed an intolerance for anybody who doesn't think the same way we do politically. And we forget, and I've been looking for the text in Daniel. I don't know where Daniel says it. Maybe one of you all can help. But
What
God sets up kings and takes down kings.
Oh, yeah.
is that said there in Daniel? Oh yeah, it is in Daniel. That's right.
Yeah, I thought it was towards the end of the book, 9, 10, 11, something. Anyway, so whoever is going to be elected, especially at the national level, is going to be there because God wants them there. And so what am I worried about?
I can hear.
Are
Rick-
the labor unions and are the Iranians and are the Russians or Chinese, are they all trying to affect the election here in America to decide who's going to be put in place? Maybe they are.
It's
And
all
I don't
talk
know if you
about
want to say there's a
trade.
conspiracy. Maybe they're all talking to each other and let's all do this at this time to get this person elected. They won't change what happens. They won't change what God wants to happen. You know, there was an election a while back, and we don't need to get too deeply into who or what, where everybody was convinced a certain person was going to get elected. And when that didn't happen, everybody was shocked. Everybody was shocked.
Prepare
How
for that to
did
happen
that
again.
person lose?
Well, I wanted to say really quick, all of a sudden they're going to put the shipping issues 3 months from now. I mean, they have the power to do this. I mean, if we don't get things from overseas, which we get most of our stuff from overseas, it's going to cause havoc here. Havoc.
I'm not saying we won't be messed up by the decisions these other governments and entities are making, but the person who's elected won't be because they did what they did. The person elected will be because God wanted them to be elected.
I can see Ricky jumping up and down already. Because this is one of his pet peeves on his discussion. So
Sorry, Ricky.
you're not doing Ricky any justice, Dallas. So
Sorry, Ricky.
you guys just decided to have these discussions when I'm all gone. The verse we were looking for, Dallas, is 2:21. And he changed the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that knoweth understanding.
Thank you.
Now, there has been kingdoms that have been set up by, without the permission of God, and God allows it, obviously, right? I mean, God could stop anything that He wants it to stop. But maybe we'll save that discussion for when Ricky gets back. But I like surrounding myself with people who don't necessarily agree with everything I say. Because then that sharpens, like we said earlier, truth is not hurt by scrutiny. You know what I'm saying? So it's always good to talk things out and scrutinize every little detail of everything that's being said, and not just go with what one. I don't want people walking around. Well, that redheaded guy on that podcast thing, he said this and that. I don't want that. I want people to say, well, I was listening to a podcast and they showed me where in the Bible it says da 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 da, or I learned, and so that seems more healthy to me. But as far as the election goes, I mean, there's a lot of controversy in what happened. I think this is an engineered controversy, to be honest, and it's this effort to make us distrust the government. Now, something like this is happening in the church. Have you guys been paying attention to what's been going on? I know Dallas a little bit, not so much. How about you with the Conrad Vine?
Oh, yeah, we listened to that.
Okay. So, and this worries me because there was a call to, if you look at most of the small YouTube channels, they support fully what Conrad was saying. It's interesting, a few years ago, those same channels were calling him the devil himself because Conrad had taken the jab to get into another country. And actually that message that Conrad taught that particular day actually helped me unpack what was going through in my mind, because the whole COVID thing made me very angry. Because I was looking at all this stuff going on, it was just making me mad.
Yep.
And he and Walter Vythe kind of helped me unpack it all, because Walter was saying, hey, if your conscience tells you to do it, then do it. If it tells you not to,
Then
don't.
Yeah.
That's what is key. That's everything that should make all of our decisions is our conscience.
Yeah, you have to answer to God and God alone.
God and God alone. And Conrad helped me unpack that. But now the same person that they called the devil a couple years ago, now they're hailing as the new king,
The champion.
the champion. And it's a frightening trend that even Adventism has gotten into, where we're so ready to divide over these issues. Here's what I think, and the Bible makes it very plain. There are some that are feet, and there are some that are hands, there are some that are
Yeah.
heads, right?
Yeah.
Conrad, maybe God has given him this message. Mark Finley, maybe God has given him a
Different
message
message.
to balance out Conrad's message.
Oh, absolutely. John and Paul, right?
Yeah. And so we just say, well, Mark Finley and the GC is evil now, right? And we must split and we must stop paying our tithes. No. That's
Yeah.
not my. If you guys feel free to disagree with me at any moment, but and I know Ricky would definitely disagree with what I'm saying. So we didn't bring our key player in, but my position is there has to be a balance in the message, and God works through all of these different people. I hear people saying, "Well, Doug Batchelor has fallen to the wayside. He's now an agent of the devil because he no longer points out the sins of the church." When has he ever pointed out the sins of the church? I mean, he started to for a little while, not the sins of the Adventist church, but the sins of the Catholic church. I mean, he was never heavy into prophecy. He was always that guy at the door who greeted the brand new Christian
Yeah,
coming in.
for sure. Yep.
He's the milk of the word, and that's what he's always been. When I first came in, that was the first person I met was Doug Batchelor.
Yep.
Turn on the TV, it was prophecy. It was the Millennial 2000, and I watched it, and it just blew my mind. I was like, you know,
Yep.
I don't watch him anymore because
Yeah.
I'm
You
into
received what you
heavier-
needed from him.
Yeah.
That
He-
doesn't make his work like
Diminished.
diminished. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're so eager to criticize all these other people in our leadership. You know, the first thing that Conrad said was to pray for our leaders.
Yeah.
That was the first part of that message. He said we could do nothing or we could pray for our leaders. I don't see a single person that had heard that point that he made, and that was above the last point of which we took our tithes and our offerings and put them somewhere else, and which was a big if attached to that even.
Exactly. Exactly.
I want to know why they're messing up the truck industry. The Fords, the Rams, the Chevys, the everything that transports things.
Oh, you mean like tightening EPA regulations, making things less reliable and less.
Yeah, I mean, is that significant spiritually? That all of these companies would go belly up at the same time?
To me, in my mind, it just comes down to this: just taking advantage of an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a combination of multiple things. 10 years back, at least at camp meetings and stuff, I heard a lot about, the Pope and his agenda for the earth or whatever, and global warming and all that stuff.
1025 and stuff.
Yeah, and how that's affected, now everyone's trying to save the planet, and so that's tightening up our carbon emissions, right? Which is gonna, so much so to the point where things are gonna be really tough for the average person to start up a trucking company because the cost of entry is way too high given the technology and the requirements that the vehicles themselves require. I mean, it is taking a lot of the independentness or the capability of the small guy to support himself and to climb the ladder to make things to develop a big company. It's making all that stuff really hard, while those who have a lot of money, who've taken advantage of the system, and how it's developed, they're the ones who are gonna be able to run the trucking companies and all this kind of stuff. It's just moving power from us to the rich. And,
I wanted to say something really quick on that. My dad had this truck from World War I, maybe II. We called it the Websons Carrier.
There's the old Dodge Power Wagon.
Does it have emission standards in it? Might have to report something.
Not even close.
It had a push button, and with the little ether, you can get that thing going.
All right.
Started right up, old, rusted, completely rusted. Would go straight up a mountain. Had solid rubber tires. Never stopped working. And now you see all these new vehicles on the side of the road.
Oh yeah, any little thing and the thing is down. You know, it's
And
wild.
the thing that really gets me is the fact that they have the capacity to turn your vehicle off.
Oh, yeah.
At every intersection.
Yeah. What's all that about? I mean, if you're going to be running away in the time of trouble, is that just to make sure that you
Well,
don't get away?
If God wants me to keep going, they won't be able to shut it off.
That's true.
You know, I was talking
That's
to a friend about this. I don't want a new vehicle. I don't have GPS in my current truck, and so I don't want a new one that has it in there, because what if I'm trying to head for the hills? Or I guess I'm leaving my cell phone behind.
Yeah.
And this friend said, if God wants you to be found, they'll find you. And if he doesn't want you to be found, you'll pass in front of them and they won't see you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we lose. It's very easy for us to lose track in this whole thing. Who is in control of this earth?
Yeah.
Who?
God.
God. What are you worried about?
Yeah, and
You know, we're very angry. The rich, and I'd say filthy rich, but you know, the rich are selfish. I want some of that.
well, that means
that's-
you're selfish.
Thank you. And so we're going to redistribute this. You deserve it. I want to make you selfish. It's all selfishness. It's
It is.
all selfishness.
It boils down to selfishness. And so,
Yeah.
so you could say now, you could say that the message that we're giving right now is not really for believers. Then it's for the non-believers. Listen, if you're a non-believer and you don't have the protection of God, your vehicle is going to get shut down at an intersection when there's a disaster that strikes in a city, and and everybody's going to be all blockaded and can't go nowhere. And if you don't follow God, you're going the plagues are going to fall, and the disasters and the earthquakes are going to destroy your house and your family, while the righteous are being led into the wilderness into safety.
The rain falls on the just and the
And
unjust.
the unjust. Exactly.
Until Michael stands
If God
up.
needs you to be captured in Bozeman, to be taken to jail so you can witness to somebody right at the
He
very
will.
end,
That's a good point.
your car will be shut off and they'll drag you out of there, and that's where you'll go.
There's somebody over there that needs to be witnessed to.
So instead of worrying,
I can see it. The truck shuts down. I've been drafted.
instead of worrying if a vaccine has a microchip in it, or if my car is controlled by somebody else,
Yeah.
or if I'll be able to buy or not, or how's that going to happen? If my heart is right with God,
Oh, yeah.
He will take care of me. It's
Yep.
not going to be fun, won't be pleasant. I doubt if it'll be our first choice.
Oh,
But we can count on God taking us through.
that trial.
And Ellen White tells us when you get to heaven, the
Well,
cost will be cheap enough.
Yeah,
I was worried about what?
we're going
And I
to
had
try
shared-
and recall some trial, something that we've went through,
And you couldn't.
and we can't. It's like it. Okay, what? I went to jail. That.
No, that wasn't that
Well,
bad.
I did. No, that's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I have shared with you guys a little bit. In the year I've been here in Montana, I have struggled with stuff.
You have shared a little bit of that.
I'm still disappointed in the stuff I had to give up to come here, to move here, because it wouldn't fit in my house. And then I'm disappointed at the quality of the house I'm.
Yeah.
God made it possible for me to get that house.
Which subdivision are you living in?
Why can't I think of it?
Are you behind the airport?
Yeah, it's this new
The
development. out
Ryan
here.
Glen?
Yeah, well, behind the airport. That's
No, I'm over here at the end of the runway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the name of that?
2-6 left.
Yeah, I've seen how those houses get built.
Anyway,
a lot of Bozeman houses get built pretty shoddy.
but I am worried about something that's going to.
him personally.
I am
We
worried
know
about.
the contractors personally.
Yeah, we do. Yes, we do.
I am worried about something that's going to burn. Now, God made it possible for us to get that house, and that's another whole story. But it clearly was a quite unconventional way of getting it.
Mm-hmm.
How is that? So if God brought me here and that's what He gave me, why am I complaining about it? I'm showing I don't trust you. I don't think you know what you were doing.
Yeah.
I have become, and I'm telling you, it has consumed me for the better part of a year. And I began to realize now, let it go.
Well, amen. Yeah.
He didn't bring you here for the house. He
brought-
didn't bring us here for the weather either, because it snowed in June. He didn't bring me here for a job. He gave me a job so I would have health insurance, but that's not why he brought me here. Why did he bring me here? And that's what I need to be focused on.
Yeah.
And
People,
it's
probably.
easy for me now to transfer the excitement over stuff to excitement about an election, but I'm still missing the point.
Yeah, for sure.
I think all this, what has happened in the last, and I go back 8 years maybe, is when I saw a shift in attitude of the nation. All of a sudden it became okay to say, I hate you,
That's
and
right.
you're no good.
That's right.
But all this is a wake-up call. Pay attention.
Yeah.
To me, COVID was wake up.
Wake up.
The government's trying to push something.
Mm.
This got nothing to do with salvation,
Yeah.
if you get a shot or not.
That's I believe that 100%.
You can
Dallas.
say it threatened conscience or something, but it wasn't really forced. But how many people readily accepted what the government said and ran with it without question?
Yeah.
That's the scary
So to
part.
me, pay attention, because there's going to come a time when they do force it.
Mm-hmm.
And either you can be half asleep and just follow whatever the government says no matter what, or you can get excited about it. Now, continuing to harp on the COVID vaccine, which is over and past and done, and you need to be looking to the future. What's the next thing? And am I prepared for whatever's coming?
Long COVID.
Ellen White says what's coming cannot even be imagined.
You're making so many good points, and you're making them in such rapid succession that I go to comment, and then I have to be quiet to listen to the next one.
That was good.
That was really good, Dallas. You know, I think the takeaway here is that there are going to be some huge trials that are going to come and face us. The government will not save us, and neither will the church. The GC is not going to protect our freedom of conscience. Neither is our local government.
Yeah.
You know, individually, we have to stand up for our own freedom of conscience. We have to do what's right. You know, if God has told us to do something and we know that that's the direction that we're to walk in, though everything fails, we have to be prepared to walk to our death if that's necessary.
Yeah.
And just a word about church leadership, because I think it's dangerous to lose faith in church leadership. Who put the church leadership in place? And you may say, well, we did because we voted.
Yeah.
God put them there. And I think we should be very careful
Yeah.
in our criticism about somebody God put in a position. Now, whether they are faithful or not is up to them. And that's not for me to judge.
Now, this falls under the David and King Saul thing, right? Would David lay a hand on King Saul, even though he was
No.
the next one in line?
No.
King Saul needed to be taken out of the way, didn't he?
He sure did.
He had rejected God. Did
David-
David do it?
Oh man. No.
Did God give David a chance to do it?
Oh, absolutely.
Many.
And when
And David's witness was not go off and form your own thing, or send your tithe to somewhere else.
That's right.
No, David said, I'm not touching him. That's God's man. You want to criticize the leaders of our church, be careful. Those are God's men.
Didn't David,
Yeah.
when that man came up to him and
Yeah,
grabbed
brought him the head of the leader of the this was when he was already king, but he wasn't king over Israel. He was only king over Judah, I think is what it was. And they brought him ahead of the other king, and he just like, you guys are done. Like, how dare you touch the
anointed of the
man,
Lord.
the anointed of the
the
Lord.
anointed of the Lord?
Yeah.
It's not their place.
Didn't he have him salute?
Yeah, he killed him.
Now,
Yeah.
So how
God does
how
appoint people to confront leaders.
Yeah,
Guess what? That's not me.
it's not me.
That's probably not one of you guys. That's not any of us here.
No.
I will go out on a limb and say that is no man's job. No man.
Well, God might.
No
God
matter
might
how
give
well
that.
respected they are.
God might raise up a prophet.
Well, I
God
think
might,
it
there's a
comes
lot of
down
ways-
to God's orchestration,
Yeah.
right? Because like people play a role in God's orchestration. Like that's just part of how he works. He works in me, he works in you, and because he's working in both of us, something happens, right? And so I don't think anyone should take that on as their responsibility. Like it's not my responsibility to go out, but God does orchestrate the scenario, and he will take care of it. How that looks, we don't really know, because we can't predict what God does. Like you look at every story in the Bible, we see God in it, but I couldn't tell you how God exactly is going to work out a scenario. And so, like, me thinking that I should play a part in that, and it's like, that's up to God. Like, whether or not I end up playing a part in it, that's up to God. But I'm not going to see it. I'm not going to plan for it.
Should I criticize another because I'm being criticized myself?
No.
No.
That just fans the fire.
Yeah.
No. In fact, we're to bear those trials with patience and pray for those who wrongfully persecute us.
I was going to say something. So we had a couple neighbors,
Ooh, and we got to wrap this up too. Go
and
ahead.
they started a fire, and they tried to blame it on our truck because they were mad that Kerry had a dump truck that he got from Mr. Wagner before he passed away. And Kerry was hauling gravel, and they didn't like it. And so they started a fire, and they blamed it on Kerry's truck. And the fire marshal came, and he looked, and there was nothing wrong with this truck because Wagner, he
Kept his
he
stuff.
knows his stuff. And they said it wasn't caused by this truck. They went up and they found out it was arson. So someone had started the fire. What they were trying to do is they were trying to burn us out in our little neck of the woods. Very vicious, very vicious. The fire turns around and almost takes them out. Goes flying down the hill, up the mountain, and turns around again, trying to get them again. I mean, this was unreal. You could see the
And here's the thing, and I know who did it,
fire.
and I was praying for their house not to be burned.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced if I had not,
It will.
I was impressed to pray for them, and even knowing that they did it, I was impressed. And I think that's why the fire was turned from their place
Yeah.
twice.
And then the the dump truck again. This guy was mad at the dump truck, and he thought he was going to take our dump truck out. I don't know what it was about this dump truck. We still own it, but we don't drive it anywhere. But he hit another dump truck that looked like it when he was under the influence, knocked it completely off its axles, and it was filled full of
Gravel.
rocks and gravel, yeah. Ends up in the hospital in a coma for a whole month. Gets out, has a change of heart, receives God in his heart for a while. He was awake for a while, but then he since is back to doing his own ways. But at least they gave him that opportunity.
The man that tried to take out our truck and thought he was actually killing us, we were the first ones to stop by his house and actually help him out and help him to recover. So
Wow.
God works in crazy ways. So don't think that just because we have enemies that God can't that he's not working in your heart too during the process of your enemies coming after you.
Yeah.
I mean, and so listen, we're out of time, man. Like always, we end this too soon, but we've got to get going because our time is up. But thanks for watching. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you guys haven't already. Check out our Sabbath school. It's live every Sabbath at 9 o'clock Mountain Time. So God bless each and every one of you.